I will call this the case of the horsepower blues.
Horsepower blues.
He left my car outside of his shop all the way to 10 and a half months. There was mildew and the convertible top was ruined.
I have a rental property. I contracted with Carl to completely renovate that property. He continuously promised me delivery, which never took place.
What I was doing is making the repairs, living there. We gutted that place.
Plaintiff David Valentine claims the defendant left his car out in the elements instead of repairing the vehicle like he was paid to do. He's suing for $5,000. Defendant William Shane Ergel says the car already had interior damage and he's not responsible. He says he owes nothing.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
This is case number 217 on the docket, Valentine versus Ergel.
Okay, and welcome to both of you.
How are you, George?
Let me see what we have here. We have the plaintiff, Mr. Valentine.
Yes, sir.
And you are suing the defendant, Mr. Ergel, for $5,000 for car damages due to negligence.
That is correct.
Tell me your side of the story, and then I'll get to
Well,
it.
Judge, I will call this the case of the horsepower blues, okay?
Horsepower Blues. That sounds
Horsepower
like
Blues.
a song.
To make a long story short, I gave Mr. William Shane Ergel my car for performance work to do some wiring and things of that nature to my car.
Yep.
Brought him the car in July of last year.
Yes.
Pretty much the work that needed to be done was about maybe 3 to 4 weeks tops.
Was this because the car wasn't running, or you wanted to juice it up?
Car was not running. Recently, before him, I did an engine swap to the vehicle. All he had to do was finish off the job. So it turned out on July, I gave him $1,500 to start the project. That was July, August, September, October came around, nothing.
Why did you
November-
leave the car there if it wasn't being worked on?
With performance work, it's pretty much a waiting process, and I get that. You have cars before you, it's kind of like waiting in line. But he did tell me specifically 3 to 4 weeks tops.
Why are you suing?
I'm suing him because the work was never done to the vehicle. He turns out, in a long story, that he left my car outside of his shop, in the back of the shop, and it went from 3 weeks all the way to 10 and a half months.
Okay, time out just for a second, then I'm going to give you a chance to talk. Okay, well, number one,
Yes, I
most
agree.
driving is done outdoors.
I agree.
But secondly, if it gets to be, as you say in your complaint, 10 months, at some point, even if you pay the towing, it's going to be cheaper. You bring the car back. If you want it indoors, you know if it's there, it's going to be outdoors. Why didn't you bring it indoors?
Well, I didn't know it was outdoors. What happened is I would periodically pop up at the shop, and he told me it was at a good location, okay? I found out later on that he had it behind the shop where normal pedestrians cannot get to the back of the shop. He had it hidden in the back. It's a convertible top. It's got leather seats. You do not leave a car like that in all the elements of all 4 seasons of outdoor activity.
When Mr. Valentine approached us to do work on his vehicle, I advised him, I said, I don't have room inside the shop.
So you told him?
I did advise him it's a 3 or 4 week process to do the work that he was asking us to do, but it would be a few months before I could even get to his car because I have cars in line. So everything we do is custom.
Yes.
Every car we do, it's not normal run-of-the-mill, you come in for brakes.
You customize the car.
So each job is different, each job takes longer, so it's hard to say, hey, I'm gonna get your car this week when I'm finishing up a car that we're customizing this week that may run over 2 or 3 weeks. He did leave me a deposit in July.
Yes.
And I reached out to him
How much was the deposit?
It was $1,500.
Right.
I reached out to him several times, he reached out to me several times. We played phone tag over the next few months. And I told him, you know, I need more money to order more parts to do your car. So when I have everything here, that's when we'll start your
How
car.
much in total did he give you?
After everything was said and done, they gave me $5,000. He came to the shop, he was unhappy. I was like, look, I'll give you a refund. You can take your car somewhere else. We're not doing it fast enough for you. We just now got started on it because we have all the parts here. He said, okay, that's fine. I said, do you want the parts that we have installed on your car? or do you want us to pull them off and I give you a full refund? He said, no, I'd like to keep the stuff
That's not
that's
true
on the
at
car.
all.
So I wrote him a check for $3,500 for a refund, gave him his money back, and he called a tow truck.
I walk into the shop, I see my car, finally, it made an appearance. See my car finally, I walk up to the car, it's totally damaged. I saw the mold and mildew from the top just by walking up to it.
Do we have a picture of this?
Yes, I have that. Go ahead. Thank you, Bill. So it turns out when I got there was absolutely no work done to the car. There were parts missing off of my car, and there was mildew, and the convertible top was ruined, ripped, sun damage, rain damage, snow damage, and it leaked into the interior of the car, and mold and mildew throughout. All that was done under William Shane Ergel's watch.
What about that?
I have a picture that was taken right after he dropped the vehicle off, and we had to zoom in on it, but you can see a couple of tears that was in the top, and you can see the 3 little tears. There's a real big tear on the driver's side that we just happened to have this photo from a little commercial we had shot at our shop.
If there were tears in the roof, just as you say, normal wear and tears, then if the car is sitting outside for 10 months, that tear in the roof would permit the elements to get into the car and cause the mildew, etc.
But it was not leaking when I brought him the car, sir. That car was not leaking at all.
If that it would be subjected over 10 months to the elements, why wouldn't you either have called him and say, we got to get this car inside someplace or whatever?
Exactly.
In other words, at some point, because this is your business, isn't it fair to him to say, let's say he didn't know that much about cars. Let's say it was someone like me. If I brought a car to a garage to fix it, I'm not even going to know all the questions to ask. I'm just going to assume when I brought the car to you, while it's in your custody, you're going to make sure it doesn't come out in worse conditions. Isn't that reasonable?
That is very reasonable. When he did bring the vehicle, though, like I said earlier, it was full of parts on the inside. It had exhaust just in the interior. There was a drive shaft in the interior. There's a radiator fan in the interior. There's all kind of parts just stuffed in the interior. And he had asked me over the months, hey, can you find out a price to redo my interior and do a new top?
He asked me if I wanted a convertible top for the vehicle.
I just want to know whether there was any conversation about him fixing the interior.
Couple different times.
And do you have estimates?
I didn't go through the estimate because he came and picked his car up the following week. So I just told my guy not to worry about it, not waste your time, get your prices and stuff.
And you never had, because I can help you out here, but I got to hear from you. You're telling me there never was any conversation about the interior.
The interior was for the convertible top. I don't know what he keeps saying interior. It was for the convertible top. We had discussed in the beginning, very, very beginning, verbally.
So you knew that there was a problem with the convertible top?
No, I'm trying to restore the vehicle to 100% spec, so I always wanted the convertible top done. Now, after time has gone by, it's gotten ruined from the outdoor elements.
You paid him back $3,500?
I did.
And the
$1,500 that we kept was for the parts that he kept.
So the damage that I see to the interior of the car, it's the only issue I'm dealing with. On that, you both bear some responsibility for this. You, because you did leave it there for 10 months. If it's that important not to keep it outdoors, boy, that's like question number one that I would be, and I'd want to see where the car is. And you bear some responsibility because you're the expert here. It's your business. You've got to know that if there is a car that you are leaving out there for most of the 10 months, that it's going to bear some damage. You have sued for $5,000. It's half your problem. $2,500 for the plaintiff.
He was responsible. He had it in his possession. He should pay for the entire thing. And
if his top was not messed up when he brought it, the interior wouldn't have got messed up from the weather, he calls it.
Plaintiff Justina Houston is suing the defendant for $3,800 for unfinished home repairs to her rental property. Defendant Carl Garner says that even though the job had more surprises than expected, he finished the job, and the plaintiff approved the work. he says he owes nothing.
Give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
This is case number 184 on the docket. Houston versus Gardner.
And welcome to both of you. Let's see what we have here. We have the plaintiff, Ms. Houston, and you are suing Mr. Garner here for $3,800 for incomplete home repairs.
Correct.
Why don't you tell me your case?
I'm here to sue Carl Garner for running off with my money and not completing his contractual obligation. I met Mr. Garner through my cousin, who he had been friends with for numerous years. He introduced Carl to me as a good handyman.
Her cousin, who I grew up with,
Yes.
I'd done quite a bit of work for him. He was always satisfied with the work that we've done for him.
I first started with Carl, letting him do a small job at my primary residence, which he actually completed and did fairly well. So I progressed to a bigger job with him. I have a rental property that had recently been moved out of, and I contracted with Carl for $8,100 to completely renovate that property, clean it out, and get it back to a rentable condition.
Do you have a copy of that contract?
I do.
Okay. Let's take a look at that.
Here you are, Judge.
Thanks. For $8,100 to be paid as followed: $1,800 to start up,
Yes.
and halfway through $2,000.
Well, actually, he didn't get halfway through. He took that draw before the halfway point, and I had
But
the canceled check.
The halfway point, I was very close to a halfway point on that house.
You're saying, and you have the proof, which you're going to give me now,
Yeah.
that $3,800 was paid.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
$3,800 was paid to Carl personally, and then I allowed him to go to Home Depot, and he bought $1,700 worth of materials. So I have that receipt as well from Home Depot.
And that was put on your credit card.
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay, but those were for the materials.
Yes.
But for the work, you paid him $3,800.
Exactly.
Which is why I assume your suit against Mr. Garner is for $3,800.
Exactly.
Now, what's the problem?
Carl started out, he did clean out the property.
This place was so roach infested, problems with the rats, and it was unlivable.
He continuously promised me delivery, which never took place. He did run into a snag as he was leaving the property one day, and he got stopped by the local police and ran into some issues and was basically sent to jail for a couple of months. I'm gonna say I think it was 2 or 3 months. So he was off the job, and then during that time, he actually called me and asked me to bail him out. I refused to do that. I explained to him that I was already way behind the 8 ball on this project, and I could not afford to risk more money by bailing him out so he could complete. Once he was released, I did reach out to him. My cousin told me he was released. I reached out to him. He told me he was gonna make good on the job. That never happened. He later in October, I just finally sent him a message saying, hey, I don't even want to deal with this anymore. I just rather you give me my money back because we just had too many issues. He agreed. He then, I spoke to him in November. He told me he was having some surgery and that after his surgery, he would be in a place where he could start making some payments or, work it out.
Do you
with
have a
me.
copy of those texts?
I do.
Hi, Carl. We've encountered too many issues. I now prefer to go with the option of you returning my money as discussed. I'm willing to accept $2,500 of the total $3,800 I gave you since you did some work. Please advise how you want to settle this debt. Thanks.
And then his is continued on where he responded.
I'm aware and understand your frustration. I am totally in breach of the contract. Oh, so he's admitting. Okay. Well, here you say you're willing to get together on $2,500 as the amount you want returned.
I originally was willing to do that at that point, but because he refused to return my calls, refused to work with me and
Okay.
negotiate anything, I want the full payment as he stated he would return all my money. I've forfeited rent on the property because I haven't been able to complete the project because I've got money tied up in
Okay.
it, so.
What's your story?
First of all, true, I met Miss Houston through a friend of mine.
Yes.
As far as this job was concerned, our original agreement was when Miss Houston approached me and told me that she was interested in doing the job in a manner in which I was working on at this present time. At the present time, I had worked out an agreement with a young lady that I stay on her property because of my lack of transportation. I could live there and renovate the lower end of her house, a basement and court.
Yeah.
That had gone great. In fact, I'm still there now. But what I was doing is making the repairs, living there, kind of like sweat equity in a sense.
Yeah.
That was our original agreement. And I said, yes, I can do that, because it would work out to my advantage, because I would be able to have somewhere where I can go there, stay there, work on the property at the same time, and not run into the issue of me having to drive the nearly 60 miles back and forth from where I lived and the location in which her job was.
Okay.
It was unlivable, totally unlivable. So under no circumstances, so it created the problem of me not having the transportation, and I still had to go from Lithonia to Cobb County, which is about 55, 60 miles away from each other. It turned into a losing proposition fast. But once I got in there and started to gut the place out, we took every door, every bit of trim, every bit of carpet, every sink, every counter. We gutted that place. That was not the original intention, but every time you touch one thing, it led to another thing. We literally gutted the house. In that process, we also, when I came in, I was gonna repair it like I normally do a rehab.
Yeah.
And Ms. Houston comes in and looks at the kitchen walls. We were gonna peel the paper off, skim the scarred spots, and repaint it. That's when she started saying that she wanted the place to look as well or better than it did the day she moved in. That led to me going out, buying sheetrock and sheetrocking the entire kitchen and dining room. That alone would have been $2,000 worth of work or more.
No one's arguing that you guys want to continue this contract together. What you're saying is that the work you did was worth a certain amount of money more than she says it's worth.
I paid to work there.
Okay, at some point though, look, sometimes you get into a business deal and it turns out not to be good.
And that's exactly why I responded to her with the statement that I did as far as the indebtedness. I saw an opportunity to make money down the road as far as my relationship with her was concerned.
Here's what I see, because I read both of the complaint and your answer. And in the original complaint, you said you didn't think what he did was worth more than about $500. You said in your original, you said in your answer that it was worth at least $2,000. That's what, I'll quote you. Look, you file these things, they have validity. Here, I did $2,000 worth of work. She then told me she didn't want me to finish the project. Okay, so you were the one that originally put the $2,000 in terms, when you filed this, you put the amount $2,000 in terms of the work you had done. And you said it wasn't worth more than $500. So that is the disparity we're talking about here. Here's what we know. She paid you $3,800. She's entitled to reimbursement of that $3,800 less the work you did. You're entitled to be paid for the work you did. You both agreed to a $2,500 settlement. All right, I can only go by the documents in front of me. That, as it turns out, maybe you were thinking about that at the time, is right between what you were claiming you had done and what you were claiming it was worth. Based on that, I find for the plaintiff at that amount of $2,500.
Back, I don't feel like Carl, the work that he did do was worth $2,000, but I'm satisfied.
We never did make clear at all the extent of the repairs that had to be done. The only reason I stuck with it was because I saw the opportunity to make more money down the road with other projects that she had.
Thanks for watching. Now please approach the bench. The way I look at it, you have two options here. Option A, watch more Judge Jerry. Option B, watch more Jerry Springer. The choice is yours. Now get out of my courtroom. You have more clips to watch. And don't forget to subscribe.